ready? Good. We have a quorum. We have 3 members here and let Eric speak before.
Sure.
Staff report.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to address the Met Towers that were scheduled for the hearing today, which is public hearings 1 through 4. And what we found out and in discussions with the applicant is that a public hearing is not required for Met Towers. And the way we handle this in the future as far as public notification and such, and I'm going to explain why so that we're all clear and on the same page. Megan, if you could pull up page 110 of the zoning resolution, we'll start there. So Met Towers are regulated through the wind farm regulations, and there's different sections that they are located in, and you have your temporary Met Towers, and then you have your permanent Met Towers. Permanent Met Towers are more made for when the wind project is being constructed. So you have wind turbines, and then you'll have sometimes Met Towers located within that wind project to measure wind. And just for clarification for the public, Met Towers are different than wind towers completely. The ones that were being proposed were temporary in nature. They were tubular style tower, so they were non-lattice, non-climbable. And in addition, birds can't perch on them, things like that. When you run into sage grouse areas, that sometimes becomes an issue. And then they have guy wires on them that hold them up. And temporary Met Towers are permitted for a period of 3 years, and then can be permitted up to a total of 6 years with a renewable. So you got, wow. Okay, so I'm just going to read it to you while we wait for that. So the first section is temporary Met Towers. Basically, there's design criteria for them. You got to have bird diverters on them, things like that. But the key thing with temporary guide Met Towers is that time frame, which was what makes them temporary. So we issue them for a period of 3 years, and then we can renew it for another 3. So that's as far as, I mean, that's really what you have. The other thing is that they have to work with WYDOT, make sure that obviously for aircraft, that if they meet, they got to meet FAA regulations. So if they're over 200 feet, they need to be lighted, the blinking light on them. So then you go to page 125 of the zoning resolution. And this is, I think, where some confusion came in. And as far as whether it was going to be required or not, is we have lumped in together non-commercial and Met Towers in the zoning resolution. So with non-commercial, which is called a WECS, which is a wind energy conversion system, is what the acronym. And so we have actually lumped them in together with non-commercial wind towers, which is something you would have at a residence or an agricultural use maybe. Okay. So when you construct a non-commercial, let's just set that aside, that goes through a different process than the Met Tower. But because we lump them in together, when you go to page 127, which is your neighborhood concerns, where it specifically states all reasonable concerns of neighbors must be resolved before a construction permit for a non-commercial WECS facility. So that's an important language right there. Does not mention Met Towers. So that's where the confusion came in, is we were associating Met Towers with non-commercial WECS, but there's actually a definition of non-commercial wind energy conversion systems. So you have to go to the definition section to make sure that you are actually regulating the correct way. And here's the difference. And right in here, it states on the definition, a WECS facility with a single wind generation device. This is not a wind generation device. It's a wind measuring device. So if you didn't read the definition and you read the regulation, you would think, okay, we've got to schedule these for public hearings, which what staff did. But in the definition, it's very clear that we don't have wind generation devices associated with this. So in the future, These are actually permitted through the department, which makes sense because it was a little confusing as to why Met Towers were being required to have public hearings. I get it with a wind generation device. You want to put one in the middle of a neighborhood and you might have some potential neighborhood concerns with that come up. So, Mr. Chairman, based on that, I would ask for a motion to amend the agenda to remove items, public hearings 1 through 4, which are named as Lucite Renewable Energy Aggie Grazing was public hearing number 1. It's hard to read that. Lucite, same thing for the second one, Lucite Hills Renewable Energy Aggie Grazing number 3, public hearing number 3, and then public hearing number 4, Lucite Hills Renewable Energy Aggie Grazing LLC. Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
Maybe a little off subject, but
Yeah.
do we need to take a look at cleaning up some?
Yes, we do.
language?
Yes, we do. That was going to be my next comment. So yeah, absolutely. So that this just doesn't occur again. Because, I think Met Tower should be its own separate section in the code. That's fine that it's part of wind generation, wind energy regulation. So it should be in that chapter, but it should be its own section so that we are clear. It's not right. It's not the same thing as what a wind generation device is, which you can have shadow flicker, you've got bird fatalities associated with it. That's a whole other thing that can adversely affect an adjacent property, wind, sound, things like that. So those are some things, fall zones, things like that are associated with it. So yes, we need to fix that.
Okay, so put that on schedule. Okay,
There you go.
my members here wanna give me a motion to accept the staff report and amend our.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda, taking out public hearing 1 through 4.
I got a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, let's skip ahead a little bit. Now you gotta catch up. Okay, everybody have a chance to look at our minutes from? Can I get a motion to approve or correct the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Eric, you have anything else for us?
Just one thing as a point today is that as per the Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws, it's required to have a 3 affirmative vote in order for a recommendation to be approved. So the vote will need to be 3-0 today to actually have a recommendation. If it doesn't, then we do not have a recommendation. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I guess we're up to our first hearing, which would be the Sorrel Logistics Northwest Pipeline.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Review by. Okay. Oh, you wanna fill us in on this one?
I can definitely do that. Thank you. All right, so our first public hearing today is the Granger Station subdivision final plat. This is a minor subdivision. So it goes sketch plat, which is just before staff, and then there's no preliminary plat because there's actually no infrastructure improvements that need to happen out for this subdivision. So we're here at the final plat stage. The property owner is Tesoro Logistics Northwest Pipeline LLC, and the applicant is Nicole Jensen. This is a 27.5 acre tract located just a little bit southwest of Granger. The address is 23 Old Little America Road, and it's currently zoned I2, which is heavy industrial. The infrastructure that exists on site is they do have a well water permit, septic permit. Bridger Valley provides electricity to the property, and there is also private access from Old Little America Road to the northern line of the subdivision. Little bit of background on why we're here today is basically in around 2004, there was an illegal subdivision that took place. If I go back to the aerial here, it was when Tesoro got this little teeny tiny piece of property down here on the south end. It was after the major change in 2001 to subdivision regulations. And therefore, that's why we're here today. They've been very agreeable to getting things cleaned up so that they can move forward and get some of their structures on site rehabbed and fixed up so that they're working for them. So we needed to get the land cleaned up in order so they could move forward with their building permits and things like that. So a little bit of background on why we're here today. It's being proposed for 2 lots, the first being 25.85 acres, and lot 2 is 2 acres. Lot 2 actually resides, if you look at the subdivision plat, lot 2 is kind of here in the middle of that lot 1, and there will be a private access that comes in and feeds that lot 2. When the staff report was written and sent out to you guys last week, we were still in conversations back and forth with our attorney here and also the attorney that Tesoro Logistics had to clarify access to the subdivision. Staff had concerns on whether or not there was sufficient access to the property, and back and forth with understanding and a lot of learning throughout the process. It has been determined that there is legal access to the subdivision by way of I might slaughter this word here, but a pertinent easement, basically an easement that runs with the property that we are able to get clarified with that. So everything's good there. So please disregard the note here in the staff report. As mentioned, this was sent out before final discussions had been able to happen to get this to you guys. Mr. Jim Zimmerman went out onto site and posted the public notice and took the photos out there. They've got plenty of snow over there as well. We did not receive any comments. The only comment form we got back was from the town of Granger, and there was no comment that they had on that. So that's a good thing. And comments that were made was a compilation of myself, Jean Legursky, and Eric on this. Items 1 and 1A, we're talking about the access that has since been addressed and taken care of. All that we ask is that a note be made on the plat with a book and page that shows this is the recorded document that provides access to the subdivision. The rest of the comments that are listed on there, items 2 through 14, are very minimal comments. Basically, it's just adding notes that needed to be on there for final plat and just getting it cleared up with requirements per our regulations, noting that there's no public sewer disposable system on there, no proposed water source, no public maintenance of the road because it is a private road, and just clarification on there, making sure that once the plat is recorded, we can have good, clean copies and things like that. So just trying to crisp it up a little bit and make it easier for everybody coming after us. Couple other minor things, just to hit a few high notes, is basically making sure that all the signature lines and certificates and everything like that read exactly what we have in our regulations. So just cleaning up a little bit of verbiage there. And staff would request that all of these items be taken into consideration and staff recommends approval. But would ask that all these items be taken into consideration as conditions and that they be addressed prior to the Board of County Commissioners meeting, which will be held on Tuesday, February 21st. That's all that I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have does the applicant here like come up and speak? Introduce yourself and.
My name's Nicole Jensen. I'm with Marathon Petroleum. We own the Tesoro Logistics Northwest Pipeline LLC, Granger Station, like Megan had said. I'd like to first start by thanking you guys for being here today. And I'd also like to thank the staff, the land use staff for all their work to help us get here today. So we've had lots of discussions and lots of back and forth. So I do appreciate you guys. As Megan stated, we're here for the consideration of the final plat application and the subdivision, the subdividing of the plat to put it into 2 lots. And we do have a few people with us. If you have questions on any of the paperwork that you guys have received or the planning that you received, we'd be glad to answer any questions. So.
Any questions from staff? From members? Oh, thank you.
Right.
You get her cleaned up and get her moved forward and.
Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this? Anybody like to speak publicly? Any of the members like to say anything? No? Can I entertain a motion or?
I'll make a motion that we approve public hearing number 5 Tesoro Logistics Northwest Pipeline LLC with staff recommendations.
Do we need to remove 1 and 1A off of that?
We do not, Mr. Chairman. That was one thing that I did get in and changed on there. So
Well, on the sheet here, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have to remove that.
on the staff recommendation portion, it got addressed on that. It just
Okay,
didn't
so
make
it's
it on the
not part
subsequent slides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Say that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3. There's the first one. There. Revisiting on our second one, Mr. Bingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I'll need a motion to untable.
Oh, can I get a motion to untable?
I'll make a motion to untable public hearing number 6.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So where we left off with the, just a reminder, property owner location, it's owned by Lynn Jackman. Mr. Matt Jackman is also here. Matthew Jackman is here. It's that 110-acre tract. This is the location of the subject application, which is a variance. It was a variance to allow stockpiling of concrete on the property, which is actually a violation of the zoning resolution currently. And staff was made aware through complaints and when trucks were driving in and dumping it and the noise associated with those haul trucks. So there is what the applicant provided as far as sketch plat that was provided. Well, actually, this drawing and the date, we have not received it as a sketch plat application, but Mr. Jackman provided it for his proposed development. And then this is the location of the property. Posting. And then you can see the stockpiles of concrete, which has come into fruition that this is the Lincoln School. So we went through the criteria. And staff's opinion was that it was not that there are some concerns as far as the material being out there. And really the ultimate thing that we would like to see is it cleaned up. And through discussion and through Mr. Jackman's testimony at the last hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission asked him to come back with a plan. And we have not heard from Mr. Jackman. Staff hasn't, but he is here, and I turn the time over to him to present his plan. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I just like to step up and address this. Yeah, get that 30 days to come up with some solutions.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize they wanted me to contact them with solutions.
Oh.
Most of them were developed within the first week right after. Spoke with Tim Self and John Imoni, both the property owners adjacent. One of the holdups has been the easements and the access. Both are willing to grant the easements. Both have been already drawn up by JFC. They're waiting for the resolution here to sign easements. People don't like signing over property without having a resolution and a long-term plan of what that looks like. So they want to make sure that it's resolved in what we're going to do here and that the construction yard is approved before they just sign the easement. So,
And I know, thinking a lot of our questions were, we need a solution because it is in violation.
Mhm.
And all this stuff, we know has been there from the 70s a lot, but now we have new stuff that has arrived since the zoning was put in, and that's in what we're really in violation of.
no, I understand what you're asking for.
I think everybody's looking for a solution, because eventually this stuff needs to either be used as road base for your development, is what you're saying your plans are.
Yep.
Or it needs to be hauled out,
Yep.
you know, and that's kind of, I know.
And I came with a timeline as well.
And
That
you
we've
come with a
developed.
timeline, and I mean, that's for me, and I can't address what the other members want to know. I want to know what kind of timeline. I mean, are we looking at by the end of this year? You know, or something,
Mhm.
this is resolved, you know, because
Yeah.
it's,
Yep. So I talked with two crushing companies. Wiley has their own crusher. I don't know how, I like Cody. I don't know how reliable his crusher is. We've hired him to crush before and I felt like it was down more than it was up. But we also talked to Gorge Rock, who has their crusher that they move in periodically. Gorge's crusher will be available in November of this year. I have to give them like a 30 days notice when I want it, but they don't want us to use it till the winter because theirs is available in the summer. They're using it at their pits to, crush rock and stuff for aggregates to use on construction projects and for concrete to be mixed. But so without a doubt, I'll have one available in November. I've got two options. Wiley's is available. If I give him 60 days notice, he can have it there ready to go. It's available sooner, but I'm anticipating having it crushed this calendar year, maybe into January or, January, February, the following calendar year, depending on availability timeline from them. But it will be crushed within the next year from this meeting. At that point, while that process is going on and getting it crushed, we'll get the final plat approved, get water lines. This is something we want to move forward. As discussed, my little brother wants a plat out there and wants to build his house, and he's really the driving force in getting the subdivision built.
and, there's
Yeah.
a new, the state gave us new rules, so you can peel off land for him, right?
Yeah, he wants one of the back corners,
Mhm.
which, so by then you might as well develop anyway. You got to build a road, you got to build a water line. So you might as well do it. But he wants one of the back corners because he likes having the big open view to the BLM.
Mhm.
And that's what he's looking at. But yeah, the other question that I remember coming up was the air quality and the air permits. I talked with Nick, Wyoming DEQ. The people that own the crusher, 99% of the time have the requisite crushing permits that the Wyoming DEQ grants for the year. They can crush basically wherever within the county. The exceptions are up in Teton County, which has some weird rules as regards to crushing and air quality. But 99% of the time in Wyoming, if they have a Wyoming air quality crushing permit, they can crush wherever. I do have to have a building permit. I can't get a building permit without the plat and that sort of thing, but that's where it would be granted. So
Any other questions?
I think just for staff here, we're looking at, we still gotta have access. We're still worried about how we're gonna get into this. We don't want to permit anything in addition to. So I mean, if you have a crusher there, we don't want you bringing other material in as well to crush at the same time.
And when we start crushing, we're gonna start building. I mean, that would be the intent, because you're crushing it, you have to haul it and move it anyway. There's no reason to not.
So I
Crush it.
think it sounds like we're kind of, the cart's before the horse still a little bit here.
Mm.
To where we need to probably get these easements approved and get the plot plan approved and make some things happen before. Unless we have a timeline on this one on a removal. So I guess, you know, that's my question is that viable? I mean, can we do a short timeline here where this has to be completed by this time period? But I would see that we probably need to make these other things move forward as well before.
And that's what we talked about at the last meeting
Yeah.
was getting a firm timeline. I remember the easements being, because nothing was signed and they're still unwilling. Nobody, right now it's my friends, right? And they're saying, well, we're happy to do it for you, Matt. We've got it. Engineers have drawn it up, paid the bills. It's
Right.
sitting there on Clark's desk, waiting to be signed. But they say, well, let's get this
Yeah,
resolved.
it
and know what
sounds
you're
like
gonna do.
everything's in the works, you know, but it just, we don't have all that finalized yet.
Hmm.
To say that, you know, this is gonna be the
Yeah, and if you,
solution, so.
yeah, I guess I was under the impression the finalized easements weren't the holdup from last time because they,
No, but I think that
Yeah.
that also is part of how we get to the end result, you know.
Mhm.
Does it stay there and you utilize it as you intend to use it after you crush it, or does it get cleaned up by a certain date? I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep.
On where we go, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the question I've got a couple of questions just leading to what Mr. Lyon is stating there. Is that for Matt? So just, is there anything that needs to be done as far as the preparation of the material for crushing?
as far as like what is there now?
Yes.
Nope, gets dumped with a loader in the crusher and it spits out.
So just the way it is right now, and then you just take it and load it in the crusher.
Yep,
Okay.
pretty much.
Okay. Just didn't want to run into,
I'll have
something
to-
because if there's, I mean, obviously there's probably
I'll have to
snow out
have a
there.
water truck out there and wet it before it goes in the crusher
Okay.
to limit dust, but that's.
That's it. Okay.
Does that include the rebar and the brick and everything else that is out there as well, not just the concrete?
Yep, the rebar, the crushers all have magnets on them. It sucks out the rebar. Yeah, pretty standard. Like I said, we've got one bad load, which I talked a little bit to the haul guy. So he had one dump truck load that we were all cleaned up. He had one load left with some rebar, some concrete mixed. And he said he just hauled it out there so we could finish the job. But there's one bad load that
Okay.
probably has too much rebar to crush. So that's 2 scoops of a loader out of 2,000.
The other thing is crusher, not to bring this up, but it's another permitting thing that we may have to address. And this might tie into the access. I don't know. But as far as the, crushers aren't allowed in residential zone districts, we're running into a lot of stuff here. And we can deal with that later. I mean, if you're talking November as a possibility, we've got time to do that. But you can certainly put in conditions, timeframes associated with when you want things done. And I think that's what your the Planning and Zoning Commission's biggest concern is. We don't give here's 9-10 months to a year, and then nothing happens, and then we're back here again next year, and then and staff just holds off, and there's no violations, nothing, and then it's another year. So I think that's for Mr. Jackman's benefit. That's what I believe that's what your major concerns is a time frame to make sure this gets done. Which staff appreciates and is on board with also. So,
And I guess, Eric, where we are,
yeah,
regardless, from today, we're 6 months from a final plat, right? Just if I
Okay.
told JFC to create a final plat, get the permits, it's 6 months out anyway.
I'd love to address that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's,
Just looking off what Dan Kennedy. was
okay,
telling me.
that's fine.
So,
No.
yeah.
Okay, so we have received no application yet.
Mhm.
Okay, so we need a sketch. Obviously, the size and scale of this is going to be a major subdivision,
Mhm.
which we'd love to see that area get developed into a residential subdivision. That's a great thing. So at a major subdivision, you're talking 9 months to a year. Okay, so just so everybody's clear and on the same page as that. So, yeah, so as soon as you get that process going, that's great. I can't hold you to it. I can't force you to do a subdivision,
Mhm.
but that's great that that's where your intentions are going with this. So, but just so for your benefit, that does take about, I've never seen a major subdivision go faster than 9 months to a year. So, and this poor people from Tesoro, how long that took. So, for a minor subdivision. So, because some things come up, so I think, a time frame, as far as, I guess, one question to Mr. Jackman, how long will it take you to get the easements?
Once we're approved, then I got the approval for the county commissioners. A day,
Okay, why is this application dependent upon the easements, I guess?
because it's my friends doing it. They want to make sure I'm going to get the approval to go forward with the construction yard. They're not worried about the subdivision. They know that if I put forth a good plat and a well thought out subdivision, the subdivision's going to go forth.
I do have a recommendation though,
Mhm.
just for you. So if you're gonna do a subdivision, let's make sure it's the right size at easement
Mhm.
going in there. Cause I'd hate for you to go, okay, I got 40 feet. And then we go through the subdivision process. Now it needs to be 60 feet or 80 feet.
Yeah,
You know-
they're both 80s already.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, that'll should address that situation, but just make sure you work with us on the size of that to make sure before you start negotiating stuff that it's the right size, because I hate for you to go back and forth on that situation.
The one question we have on that plat, there's a subdivision south of Imoni's property where there's already a utility easement accessed. And Dan Kennedy hasn't done the research if we can tie in the water system to that already
Oh.
existing facility, or if we have to go off Yellowstone Road. So that's again, final plating. There's not for here.
Yeah.
But that's the only real holdup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I totally do.
But-
Yeah, and in sketch plat, we're not requiring that you book in page of easements, because the sketch plat is for us to give feedback to Mr. Jackman. Okay, this is what, are the streets okay in the layout, the lots, it's very, obviously very preliminary, and then you go to preliminary plat.
Mhm.
So, that's fine. That's a separate process. Let's not get confused with that. I think that is going to take some time to go through. When do you anticipate a sketch plat coming in?
Honestly, once this is approved, because then John Imoni will have his easement drawn up exactly where he wants it. Right now, it's scheduled to be right on his property edge.
Okay,
I'm trying to convince him to do it differently so he has more developable property. He's willing to grant it wherever. The problem is he doesn't want to pay for extra line. I said, I'll do a water line straight through your property. So it's his exact location. Right now, the deed has it drawn up on I have to get out my 3rd grade math, the eastern property edge of his.
okay.
And I don't. you know, if you got the-
That's all I had questions I have at this time. I
Yeah.
hope I addressed, but you can put conditions and timeframes on that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just kind of looking for, what is a feasible recommendation on this to try to capture what we need to capture today and not muddy the waters any further than we have to. So, yeah, like I said, I still think we're addressing the issue, but then now we're adding, this is what we're gonna use it for, this is how it's gonna work, this is what I promised to do. But we still haven't seen anything of that, and so that's why I made the cart in front of the horse, or the cart in front of the horse comment, because it just seems like we're not really addressing, we're still kicking the can down the road, if
Right.
that makes any sense. And so I just want to make sure we cover what needs to be covered for today, for what's happened out there. And we make sure that we still want to be pliable enough to fit with what you're trying to accomplish as well.
If your recommendation was 18 months, either construction has started or the concrete's hauled off. And then we go into violation stuff, that would be. I'm good putting on my P and Z from when I was for the Rock
Yeah,
Springs.
no,
That's what-
and then, but we're also now we're kicking it down the road until construction started. But do we have that done within that 18 months? Yeah, I mean, is that the time period, or is it just construction or removed? So I guess that's my thing. I think we want to make sure this thing's addressed.
Mhm.
And I don't know how long we can put that down the road, but somewhere we need to kind of say, okay, this is, yeah, here's the cutoff.
Mhm.
This or this type of a thing. So.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few concerns on this. So it's an R2 zone. Crushers aren't allowed there. So we have to go through a process to see if that happens. So even if we approve something here, you can crush it within so many days. It still has to go through another process to approve that. The subdivision, I think this subdivision has been brought in the past a few times. And it's never happened. I kind of feel at this point, it's like you're in violation here. You're in violation, and now we're like, oh, pay no attention to that. I've got this subdivision here. It's almost a diversion to what's going on here is how I feel. For this, we put a plat here. This is going to take quite a while to get it done. These people have been dealing with, basically, this has been made an unauthorized junkyard is what it is out there. We've been dumping stuff out there that's not supposed to be out there. These people that live out there have that in their backyards and everything. That's probably not what they signed up for. So that's my concern is there's a lot of stuff here that we're kind of throwing out in front of it, diverting us from this is put here illegally. We need to take care of it. My thought coming in here was, okay, we don't have any complaints from the neighbors about a crusher at this point, but we've never told them that we're going to crush it either. If it's an R2 and it's not authorized and one of these neighbors came in here and said, I don't want a crusher here. My instant thought was, they're not allowed here. We have one complaint. We can't do it. I think that may be where it goes. We don't know because it hasn't been done yet. So my thought was we can get the crusher, get it here, get it done as long as everyone's okay with it there. But now we're about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. We've probably had this subdivision in front of P and Z in the early 2000s and it hasn't happened yet. I just feel like something needs to happen with that stuff now and we need to quit kicking it down the road.
You want me to? So what happened in early 2000s? We were going to do it. We were ready. It just wasn't economically viable, right? We now have $500,000 worth of aggregate and material that we don't have to pay to truck in.
That may be the same 18 months from now, a
Mhm.
year from now.
But now it's economically viable is what I'm trying to, when we tried to do it 10, 11 or 17 years ago, however old. One, I wasn't with Jackman, right? I was still like in high school. But the other part, it just wasn't economically viable at that point. That's about when property values tanked. We're kind of at the tail end of that boom in the early 2000s that we were trying to approach it.
Mhm.
So now I think property values are probably dropping and it's still economically viable, especially with the new aggregate here. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but I understand why, and I don't blame you. I'd be asking the same questions reversed. I really would. So.
Yeah.
And I understand saying, well, subdivision's putting the wool before our eyes. Here's the violation. The subdivision, that was our intent with the concrete. That's the only reason it came up. If you really want to get back to the original start of it, originally this was a dust complaint. Any work we do out there is just going to generate more dust, whether you get it or haul it off. If the only reason we're here is a dust complaint, then we should leave it alone. Forcing us to haul it off just creates more dust and more noise. Where it's sitting there, it's not hurting or creating dust. That's where this whole thing started, was dust.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get it alleviated, long-term plans, forward thinking. Does that make sense or follow, kind of?
It does, but at the same time, a violation's a violation. And if we're allowing violations, I think we set a precedence of allowing it.
I understand. Yeah, that's why we're doing the construction yard permit that's before you today to try and say, okay, you're in violation. your consequences are this has to be done in the 18 months.
Mhm.
That's how I'm viewing it. I don't know. You guys seem to have a different opinion, so.
Yeah, the time frame concerns me. It's, you know, coming in here, I was like, yeah, if we can get this done within 60, 90 days, that seems reasonable to me, but we're talking a lot longer time here than what I would like.
Sorry. Even your stipulation, because there's potential. I'm not certain there's potential in 60 to 90 days.
Yes, so my thing, you gotta move the material one way or the other. It needs to
Mhm.
be moved off. You're planning on crushing it and using it and leaving it on site. I think it's in violation right now. If the subdivision doesn't happen or does happen, in the short time, I would like to see it removed from the site or crushed and removed from the site and then brought on when it's time to do it. Like I said, this is an R2 zone. It's not an industrial zone. It's not intended for crushed material to be stockpiled out there until something happens.
See what your,
That's my feeling on
that's
it.
your feeling. Okay, yeah, because that would be tough. And then it just defeats the purpose of doing a subdivision.
Correct.
So,
And
you know, and that's,
And I don't have a whole lot of sympathy on this because this material was brought in from other sites, stuff that was torn down and it was supposed to be disposed of legally, and that did not happen.
no, I hear what you're saying. I understand. So. Yeah, whatever you guys want to do, I've given you my feedback. I don't see the material as hurting other people. I understand it's not supposed to be there. And we can get into it long-term. I'm trying to get a resolution as presented, because when Eric called me, I didn't realize it was even going to be a problem. And he said, hey, we got a problem here. That's when the yard permit and everything else came about. So I get what you're saying, and you're probably, you as a commissioner and as I would, oh, you're begging for forgiveness rather than asking for permission, right? That's what you feel, and that's okay. But I'm trying to do my best to make this situation that works for everybody. And that's the reason this is out there. That's why I'm saying, if you have to put a timeline on it, 12 months, 18 months, we can have it good, cleaned up, ready to go. I mean, God, if you wanted to get into legal details, semantics, residential, I think I told Eric this on the phone. Well, that's just landscape rock. You know what I'm saying? Which is silly, right? But yeah, we can get all sorts of that we don't need to get into. Let's work together. I want a partnership here and I want to get a subdivision built. So.
Any other comments?
No, that's about all I had.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, I do, one option, and Commissioner Gerard brought this up, was you do have the option of approving it for 90 days. And then, and having a termination on that from the date of the Board of County Commissioner approval on February 21st, if this does move forward. That is an option. And then, Mr. Jackman will have to start over and get another variance, but then you can see where things are at after 90 days, if that's how you feel. So just an option out there.
So being that this is a revisited, do we need to go back to public comments again?
Yes.
Okay.
I-
So let's open it up to public comments. Is anybody like to come up and speak on this hearing? None, with nobody stepping forward, I will close public comments. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, one thing is you may want to ask Mr. Jackman is, can he do anything in 90 days? I guess that's whether, before we even go down that option. Sorry, Matt, wasn't done. Yeah.
Yeah, can step right up. Well. Can you do anything in 90 days?
90 days, we can have the easement signed. The fact that there's a temporary permit, I think will be enough for Mr. Self and Ms. Trimoni. we could have the sketch plat done and be well on the way to the preliminary plat, I believe. So that would
And
be,
I know still a lot of people want to see the subdivision go forward.
Mhm.
Like me, want to see some progress. It is a violation.
Mhm.
And so we want to see planning to end the violation.
no, that's
That's what we want to see. Is
There
a
it goes.
step. Okay, from here, we know we're gonna have a solution to not be in violation anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of, me and my members want to see.
Yep.
Is we get past, the what ifs or maybe, and just want to see something
Yep.
concrete,
and I
like
think
a good pun.
I think a sketch plat filed, application and process, preliminary plat in the works.
Mm.
That's feasible in 90 days.
No, okay, thanks.
Let's, did you say Monday? No, I'm
Hey.
sorry.
What's the pleasure of the board? You'll have a motion.
Yeah, what does that motion look like?
What's that motion look like?
I'll make a motion to approve public hearing number 6 with the condition of a 90-day period on the materials either removed or we have something in the works. Would that be our preliminary plat in the works of the development? Does that make sense? I mean, because there's got to be, it's either removed or restart again. And I guess let me amend that. Let me start it. We'll just have, I approve the public hearing number 6 to be completed within 90 days of removal. And we'll go from there.
Second,
Mr. Chairman, before that second, can we add that no additional materials brought on site?
And yes, no additional materials.
So let me just clarify your motion. Your motion is that everything has to be done within 90 days. The crushing needs to be done. Is that your motion?
Removal of the concrete,
Removal of the concrete in 90 days.
90 days.
Okay, whether it's crushed or hauled off or whatever.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So we have a 90-day. Got her covered.
Okay,
Anything else for us, Eric? And I guess before we go that far, we got done with this. I believe Island here is our planning and zoning liaison now from the county commission. If I was watching YouTube correctly when I was watching this stuff.
Way to throw me on the spot, Mr. Chairman. I believe I know all of you. My name is Island Richards. I'm newly elected county commissioner, and I had the distinct pleasure of being appointed liaison to land use and planning and zoning. It's a great fit for me. I spent 7 years up there on that dais, on that side of it as a planning and zoning commissioner. So I have a little bit of experience in the field. And my purpose as liaison is just to open the lines of communications between our board and yours and make myself available for any questions you have. And to sit through your meetings. So when these recommendations come to us, I have some background on it and can help our board see why your board did the things that you do. So happy to work with you. Offices around the corner and all the way down the hall. If the door's open, come on in. I look forward to any discussions on any subjects. I work pretty closely with Eric on everything you guys set as policy and other land use related issues. So thanks for having me.
Congratulations.
Appreciate your participation.
Mr. Bingham, anything else for us?
No, Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got.
All good. Megan?
I do have one more thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we do not have any public hearings in March. We do have stuff on schedule for April, so there will not be any meetings next month, but we'll be back in April.
Mr. Chairman, one option to that is that I'd like to hold a workshop to go over the bylaws. So we could do it, and if you're amenable to, and the Planning and Zoning Commission is, so
It would actually be a good time, because I know we got some more cleanup and
exactly. So I think that'd be a good time for a workshop. I'll get it together and we'll meet at the same time, but there won't be any public hearings.
sounds like plan.
Okay.
Anything else from members? You get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.